I
Wow.
am the king of the Mauler Fiends. I will steal that title. I will play them the
You
day
don't need to
I
steal
think
that
they're
title.
great.
No one else is claiming it.
Yeah, it's I picked it up off the ground. It's mine. My
Mhm.
trash.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to All Around the World Eaters. I'm your host, Dara, and I'm joined today by the wonderful Brian. Brian, what's up, dude? How are you doing on this fine evening?
I'm doing great, Dara. Same old, same old. I actually just got done playing 40K about 20, 30 minutes ago.
The people wonder, do you
Um,
ever stop playing 40K, Brian?
it's an addiction. I love it.
Yep.
It is my favorite hobby, best hobby in the world. I'm just happy to be back on here again so
Awesome.
quick.
Yeah. So I suppose for anyone who doesn't know you, might be tuning into the podcast wondering what's on the agenda today. Um, as of time of recording, you're recently back from the WCW where you got best in World Leaders, and you're like this kind of like in my eyes a rising star in the World Leaders competitive scene. Emerging on the scene maybe less than a year ago and already having quite a significant impact on it, and I think changing a lot of our perspectives on how we're playing the game and bringing new ideas to the fold, which is awesome. So I thought it would be cool to get you on, get your takes as someone kind of jumping into the scene and obviously seeing quite a lot of success with it. But we always kick off the show with a bit of a random question. Given that it's all around the world leaders, where is your favorite place in the world that you've ever visited, Brian?
Ever visited? That's actually a pretty easy question for me. It's a pretty recent answer. I actually just got engaged, not that
Oh,
long
big
ago.
congratulations.
Thank you. And I
Awesome.
got engaged to a history major, and of
Ooh.
course that meant that we had to go to a history place for us or a historical place for us. They love their monarchies, and we actually ended up in Stockholm, Sweden.
Oh, wow, nice. Yeah, I have been there.
And
It's a lovely place. Yeah,
it was awesome. We actually stayed on one of the boat hotels,
yeah,
um,
yeah. Very
and
cool.
got a whole awesome nightlife view of the city. I think we walked like 120 miles over like a week. It's just
Wow.
from, I mean that's just Europe.
Yeah,
US you got to drive and bus everywhere. Europe you can get away with walking a little bit more because the cities are a
absolutely. Yeah.
little bit better. But yeah, loved it there. And then got on a plane and went straight into Michigan GT, which is where I got my golden ticket. I literally flew in Friday
Airdropped into
night.
the Michigan GT.
Yeah, flew in Friday night, got like
Nice.
4 hours of sleep, and started a GT.
That's
So,
awesome.
but
It's
yeah,
quite
I'd have to
impressive.
say Stockholm was a awesome place.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a beautiful part of Europe to be fair. Anywhere in that kind of region, I'm a huge fan of, to be honest.
I think I mean I don't speak or read Swedish, and I think I ordered every beer at random, and not one tasted bad. All of them
Yeah,
were fantastic,
it's
better than
one of the
anything
main
I have at
things.
home.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, it's great vibes there. To be fair, that's awesome. I always really like hearing the answers for that part. People come up with such interesting places. I feel, and yeah, it's another great installment. But anyway, let's kick into the 40K or the Warhammer. I suppose doesn't have to be necessarily 40K, but um, tell me a little bit about what got you into the hobby, Warhammer in general, or miniature gaming, or anything like that. Like, what was your avenue into the scene?
so Warhammer is actually a pretty recent thing for me. I only started getting into miniatures like a little under 11 months ago, toward like December, late December of last year. And it was my best friend helped get me into it. I used to live in Texas, actually born and raised. I am Texan. Moved up north to Michigan for school. And as I was a kid growing up, he was always, "Hey, you should try 40K. Hey, you should try 40K." Pretty much from like middle school, sixth grade, like going forward, I was always super intimidated. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be a good painter. I don't know if I can really build this and put time into it. It's really expensive as a kid too. And
Yeah, like back in the day, it's like you get one kit and you're like, I gotta stretch this for like 6 months.
right. But then I'm also a hypocrite because I was a hardcore Magic the Gathering player. Like
Wow. Okay.
I,
Right.
I, I think when I sold out, I sold for like almost 10 grand. I didn't realize how much I
Dude.
accumulated. A lot of that was luck. I had some
Yeah.
reserved lists before it went crazy. Like some cars were $300 that I sold for 2 grand. Like
Wow.
that's just how Magic works.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
crazy
It's a
now.
whole different kind of scene, you know, because you always have that like crossover of people who are into magic, and every time they tell me something about magic, I'm just like, whoa, like
It's
that is
cardboard
wild.
crack,
Yeah.
plastic crack, cardboard crack. It's addictive too. But moved up north to Michigan, and I found myself wanting to be able to still like bond with my best friend down there. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll give this 40K thing a shot. I'm on my own. COVID hit, and I was like, I need something to entertain myself, and what better way to like become a good painter is when you have no audience and you're just sitting there workshopping away until you found what you liked.
Yeah, yeah,
That's that's
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
what got me into the hobby. Was eventually my friend won me over after like a decade, but
Hmm. And would you
um,
say it was like a, I suppose the pull, what was like the pull into the universe? You know, was it like, I really want to paint minis, I want to play the game, I'm really hype on the lore? Was it like a mix of things, you know?
it it was the visuals of it. I knew nothing about the lore. I actually was a World Eater player before I even knew who Angron was. I was like,
Right. Okay, wow.
I didn't know anything. I was
Yeah.
like, the red guys look cool, and I'm an antagonist. I like playing the antagonists, and
Hmm.
um, I liked Warhammer Total War was coming out around that time, and I was like, oh, all these trailers look super sick, and they have models too. There's a whole board game for this. And I was like digging through a used bin in my local LGS and found some. It was like Chaos Legionnaires from Ninth Edition that had the Forge World bits on them, the upgrade bits.
Yo, that's hype.
And I was like, I didn't know what that was. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
these are cool. These are like the red guys, right?
Mm,
And then I looked up what I actually had in my hands. It was like $300 of resin on very well kit bashed. And then I was
nice.
like, oh, I want more.
And then it was a problem,
And then I saw what
basically.
Wally the Berserker looked like, and I was like,
Yeah, maybe not
It's just-
the regular
maybe not.
dudes.
And
But hey,
then
we're blessed with a much nicer aesthetic now, right? For sure.
right, I love my we got treated. I know people are hard on GW for our release, but we got treated pretty well. I
Yeah,
feel
I mean,
like
the aesthetic, it's right there. You know,
yeah,
like
we
it's
have no model that looks out of place besides maybe the Mauler Fiend. Then that's about it.
yeah. Even
Or I'm
then,
sorry, the Defiler. I don't consider the Defiler a
oh yeah,
model.
I mean, it's like that's like the forgotten child in everyone's mind, except for like a few
Sure.
people in the Discord who are like, I will run the Defiler until I die. But you know,
Yeah,
the Defiler doesn't look good in any army. It's not a World Eater's problem. It's a Defiler problem, right?
I have a tinfoil hat. They took the Soul Grinder out of production. They stopped making Soul Grinders.
Really?
Yeah, they took
I
them
didn't
out of
know
print.
that.
I think their cast might have broken or something. And I think that's pointing towards the Demon's eventual release. The Demons are probably going to get a new Soul Grinder kit,
Which will double
hoping
up.
it's a dual kit.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Hoping
got
it's
to.
a dual
It's
kit.
got to, right? Yeah,
Or
yeah.
CSM, maybe CSM gets it as a kit and it's a dual kit, and we get a Defiler upgrade, like Parasite off of CSM a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that would be we can hope and dream. I want the Defiler to look amazing and be good because it's so freaky, you know, like this crab
It,
walker monster with a cannon on top. I'm like, that's
There's just
like
too much
sick,
going
you know.
on.
Yeah.
There's just too much going on,
I don't
especially for
know.
the old model.
Yeah,
I would
it's
love one. I would. It's only the visual stopping me from even reading the data sheet.
100%. Yeah. Well, I don't read the data sheet. It's pretty good. You know, you'll feel like almost like an obligation to get one when you. It's definitely like one of the sleeper hits in the book, but it's only a sleeper because no one wants it. You know, no one wants
Right.
to deal with that pain. But yeah. So like, obviously, getting into it, you know, it's not really the typical start that a lot of people I talk to have, where it's like I was into it as a kid and then I dipped out, then I got back in. So it's kind of cool and fresh to see that. But I suppose arriving at this point where you're in the hobby for a little bit, what is it, like a little bit less than a year at this point, essentially?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Getting close to the year mark.
cool. Yeah. So given the year that's passed, getting into it, what is the hobby to you now in that sense? Like, what does it mean to you in terms of what does it represent and all that kind of? I know it's like a pretty loaded question, right? It's like that can be a lot of different things, but essentially what I'm asking is like, how's the year been of getting into the whole kind of sphere of everything that's going on?
Well, I think I think mentioned in the Discord server that I've actually played many, many, many games of 10th at this point, and I played many, many, many games of ninth, and I've played multiple Crusades, narrative, big games. For me at this point, it's just my favorite hobby. In all aspects. I can sit down and paint. I'll get bored of it eventually, like when I like like I'll go on hiatuses for a few weeks of not painting, and then I'll just sit down and do nothing but paint for a week straight. Come home, work, paint, sleep, and I'll have fun doing it the whole time. And while I'm at work, I'm listening to audiobooks. And then I'm ready to play games every week. We have a club that gets together. For me, it's just it is an addiction almost, but I don't consider it that in a bad way because it's productive, it's fulfilling. Like I'm producing something with my hands. I can express myself through an army that I
Yeah, you
like.
can look it down on the shelf and say like, "Hey, cool! I made and painted and created
Right.
all this stuff." Right? Like that's quite fulfilling in its sense.
It was hard to explain to my parents the first time I showed them. I was like, "Hey, I got into model painting," and my dad's like, "Oh, what are you doing? Like, tanks and boats and ships or something?" And I was like, "Nope, here's Angron." And he's like, "What the hell is that?"
It's like, are you a Satanist now or
Oh
something?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I was like, "Yeah,
It's
pretty
not what you'd
close."
expect. Yeah, yeah,
No, when he sees the chaos symbol, it didn't help. But
yeah. Yeah,
for me, it's just a good escape from just the workday. It helps me
absolutely.
get through the workday too, especially when I'm listening to it while it's like a passion now at this point. I love it.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, you know, you're in all aspects of the hobby, right? Like it seems to me that like obviously aside from the competitive stuff, which we're going to dive into really deeply in part two, but you're really into the painting and the lore and all that stuff as well. So you're really there's not is there like a specific kind of aspect of the hobby that pulls you more than others, or do they all
I
just kind of like have a different attraction for you?
I like all of them, and they all have a different attraction. Like whenever I'm talking to a new player that wants to get into the game, I'm usually pretty good at encouraging them. I was like, look, you can pick whatever faction, army, chapter you want, and there's like 20 books of worth of lore, artwork. There's video games that can just you can go down a rabbit hole no matter what your choice is. And as long as you pick like an aesthetic you like, you can pretty much be entertained forever. Um, Currently I just read The Betrayer. I'm in the middle of The Betrayer, which
Oh
is
wow.
when
Yeah.
Angron power lifts a Warhound Titan to
Hmm.
save Logar, and I was like, that's fucking sick. I loved
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And
This is your first time reading Betrayer, right?
yep,
Yeah, it's
I
like the quintessential World Eaters book, I suppose, for many people.
I've read Angron as a Primarch book, getting started. Khorne, I think The Betrayer as well. I think is
Yeah.
it The Betrayer? I read his
Eater of
book.
Worlds, maybe.
No, it's behind me somewhere. Um, I'm not sure. But the Khorne book, the
Yeah.
really good one. And I'm in the middle of Red Path as well. That one's a little bit.
I don't think I've actually read that one, even
It
though, channel
it's definitely
namesake and
World
all.
Leader propaganda. It is straight up World Leader propaganda.
Yeah, yeah.
You get to hear it's like the first 150 pages is Karn brutalizing White Scars, just not even contest. Um, like
Yeah,
even hurting himself for fun to make the fights even.
that's
And
our boy.
then I read the new Angron book. That one was a little disappointing,
Oh,
but
the one that came out like was it this year or with
with
the
the
Codex?
release,
Yeah,
with the
yeah. I
Codex.
have heard that a lot of World Eater people didn't enjoy that because it's not really a World Eater's perspective for a lot of the book. It seems to be Grey Knights. Is
Yeah, it's
the feedback that I got?
about half Grey Knights, and without spoiling anything, it's like half Grey Knights. I mean, it's been out for a year, but and then it's told third party. It's not from Angron's perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually he doesn't say a word in the whole
It's
book.
like that guy Kosalax, I think it is, or one of
It
those dudes,
jumps
right? Yeah,
it
yeah,
jumps
yeah.
between. There's like four world leaders they jump between.
I feel like it's
Um,
really hard to write Angron's perspective in 40k because he is just functionally insane. What are you
the
supposed
arc
to wite?
the Arcs of Omen book that came out did great justice by him and actually made him not sound like just a. I mean, he is crazy,
Mm,
but not a crazy murder machine. Like he was capable of tactical thought. Like there was something going on behind those eyes, is
yeah.
what it showed us. It wasn't much, but there was something.
When he
He
flew
could.
through those spaceships,
Yep, yep. Then it's
that
gone.
sure was a play.
It was, but he was
I
still
mean,
like
the
saying,
Arcs of
giving out
Omen book,
orders and stuff.
yeah, the Arcs of Omen book was like so cool. That was like for
That
me
was the
just straight
best.
up like world leaders. Like I was gushing in that book. It's like you got the whole moon blowing up and all these guys like on the Imperial side turning to Khorne. Ah, I was all about it. I'm like,
And then
sucking Imperial fanboys. This one is for us.
and then he got done dirty in the Lion book.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit
But
for sure.
like not to go too because I can go down this rabbit hole, but I love the books. I'm excited for Space Marine 2, even though it's not a World Eater thing. I'm just
Yeah.
waiting for it.
Have you played the first game or?
No.
Oh.
The only 40K game I played was Dark Tide,
Oh,
which
nice. I actually haven't gotten around to Dark Tide yet, but it looks really hype.
mixed reviews on it. It's one of those games where I think it wasn't great out of the gate, but they
Hmm.
fixed it. So I
Yeah,
mean, people have mixed opinions on it. I still like it.
yeah. I think
Just
most
Left
of
4
my
Dead,
friends
but with
who
chain
like,
axes.
yeah, like I know a good few people who don't play Warhammer but play Dark Tide, and they're like, yeah, it's just good fun, you know.
It's a great party
Um,
game.
yeah,
Just
absolutely. Awesome. That's really cool though. So like, I guess yeah, obviously you've fallen into all these different kind of facets of the hobby over the last year. I suppose. Like, did you find it overwhelming when you got in? Because there's obviously such a wide range of things you can get into, and then the lore is so deep and all that. At any point where you're just like, whoa, like this is almost like too much information.
yeah. 40K for all that it is. They I actually respect Games Workshop from the aspect that they're not sellouts, right? They hold their IP to their chest, close to their chest, and their writing is done in a way that it's very, I mean, they've messed up a couple times, but it's very there's no agenda pushing their writing. Like they write for what they actually are. They let the authors write what they think is correct. There's no hey, we need this release, so write it this way. They kind of go along with their artists and their authors to help design sets and releases as they go. Um, the downside of that meant that like there wasn't really a good starting point to like get into 40K lore at
Yeah,
all. There's
right.
no good
It's
starting
like,
point.
what do you say to someone? Like,
I mean,
someone's like, okay, I want to pick up a novel.
it's like
Where are you supposed to begin? Like the
Horus
only,
Rising,
and even then, it's
and
like,
that's like so. It's like
yep.
you got months to catch up
I
to
feel like yeah,
what
giving
a
someone
world
Horse
eater is.
Rising is like it's almost like I am punishing you because if you like this, you know, you are in for such a long book series, longer than anything else you've ever read. It's not even done. It was begun potentially before I was born. I'm not even sure. But you know, it's like this it's a crazy series and then it's like okay, where else do you point them? I suppose the you do have the kind of Dark Imperium stuff now, the Gilliman perspective. But again,
Sure.
that book begins with like
Who's
Gilliman
Gilliman?
dying, right?
Who's
You know,
Gilliman?
it's like who's this dude and who's this giant snake man and what does it all mean?
And there's 18 more of them. Like
Yeah,
it, and for some people that's intimidating. For me, that was just like infinite possibilities of like I can just open a door and walk down it and find one character I like and read 30 books and come back, can do it again, and
yep.
come back and do it again. And I still don't know nearly as much as I'd like to about the game, and I've
Yeah,
been actively reading books for a year now.
yeah. I mean, I could say the same, and I've been in this hobby for like I don't even know, like 4 or 5 years at this point, and I'm still just like, yo, this is there's too much. You know, I'll never catch up with it all. I think at some point you just work out like, okay, cool. These are the storylines I'm interested in. That's what I'm gonna hyper focus on. That's basically what I did with the heresy. I just like binned, you know, all the salamanders and Raven Guard stuff. I'm like, I don't care about these guys. I
Yeah.
want to know about the World Eaters and the White Scars, and that's it.
Yeah, and like I said, it's nice because the authors will just write what they want.
Yeah,
And they'll make what they want, and
yeah,
all the content. It is really nice to see that they are given that level of liberty.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really nice, and I always like the unreliable author angle that they kind of take as well. Where if there's any inconsistency, it's like it's all written from the Imperium's perspective, so it's just like you know whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm here for that as well. But you kind of talk about yeah, I like the phrase that you said where it's like you open a door and you can read about a character and get like totally sucked in by all that. But evidently you got sucked in by World Eaters, right?
Hmm.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about what pulled you into the faction specifically and then, you know, what got you so into them where we have you on today on a show like from the channel all about
Yeah.
the World Eaters. Like how did it get to here basically?
So, like I said, I was a World Eater player before I even knew who Angron was. I didn't even know his name. I thought he was like, who's this dude? I thought Khorne was the leader, right? Khorne says chapter master, whatever. He has like, I didn't know if he had a chapter master keyword in the actual game, but I was like, yeah, he's basically the chapter master. He's the one that's in charge, right? No, I was wrong. Again, still very new. This is around the time that Total War Warhammer 3 was getting announced. And I'm sorry, the Khorne trailer is the best trailer. I just loved that aesthetic of that demonic aesthetic, and Khorne demons more than the other three gods kind of embody that like more traditional aspect of what a demon
It's
would
quite
look like.
classical, right?
More
Yeah, yeah.
biblical and
I mean, you look at
um
a bloodthirster.
like
That's
that.
like your quintessential big evil demon, right?
Yeah, and I was like, that's a demon. That's
Hmm.
right there. That's Satan staring at me. And I was like, that's a kind of cool vibe. And I got into 8th edition demons as a start. I picked up my first box I bought was a box of bloodletters and then Scarbrand. Because again, I
Quite a
was
duo.
yeah, and my
Yeah.
Scarbrand actually holds up. I don't know how. I haven't touched him with a brush since I painted him,
Hmm.
and he holds up with everything else. But I built a Khorne Demons army, and that's when I found the Forge World bin, and I was like, oh, there's Khorne Chaos Space Marines too, because there weren't any on the shelf. Black Legion just looked kind of boring to me, from a design aesthetic, and I was like, oh, we got the guys that worship the red demons that I like, um, and slowly pulled me into it, and I was like, oh, well, I can paint a Lane Raider red, I guess. Oh, I can paint Rhinos red. Here's some Terminators I can paint red, and I just kept painting things red. And it got to the point where as I
The
started
color red
expanding,
is this like reoccurring theme here, which seems to
oh,
be
I
quite close to your heart, right?
I get made fun of for it because I played around with getting into Votan, and I gravitated towards the Ymir or
Yeah,
the red ones.
yeah.
I just bought my first AOS army. I got the Soul Blight box,
Nice.
painting them all red.
Oh, really?
Um,
That's cool.
the
That's
the
quite different.
Blood Knights, right? They're all red,
Yeah, that's true.
and then
Wait,
and
are the
then
Soulblight the ghost dudes as well? Or are they
no, those
something
are the
different?
Soul Blight are the vampire
They're the
counts.
vampires, right? Yeah, they are sick as well. Like their new range. Oh my god. It's like that almost got me into AOS. Straight
Oh,
up.
the oh, not flesh eaters. The flesh eater range was sick. That
No, no,
reveal
no.
was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I know who you're on about. The Soulblight are the vampires, right?
Yeah,
Because they
yep.
got their new range like was it last year or earlier
I
this year?
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm not a big AOS follower.
Yeah.
I was like Christmas box. People have been begging me to get into it.
Yeah.
Great start.
Cool.
And then yeah, just to hammer that point home, I think I got a Lord of Change, and I think I painted it red.
You Bane of the Lord
Uh,
of Change Red?
I ended up getting rid of it because like this looks awful,
Right.
but I call it the fire chicken, and then painted it red and to like
Nice.
put black burnt tips on its wings, and it actually was coming together, but I just couldn't get it to work.
Yeah,
And I
that's
was like
fair.
I was gonna play an entire Khornate looking demon army. If it didn't worship Khorne, it was gonna look like it did.
Okay.
Was
Like
how
it's
I
been
was painting
captured
them.
by Khorne or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice.
I
That's hype.
and I have an Abacorn and a Bellacorn.
Nice.
Like my best friend actually does commissions for me occasionally, and knocked those out of the park, honestly.
Sick. So, Red got you into World Eaters. But I
Yep.
guess, did Red keep you in World Eaters? Like, what about it kind of like, you know,
After after I started finding out who they were, I was like, hell yeah, this is sick as hell. Like
mhm,
out of all the Trader Legions, I think I ended up just by luck vibing with the World Leaders the hardest. I was like, I want nothing more than to run up to somebody and just split them in half. And magic is for cowards and guns are optional, right? That was my whole like I don't like the idea of castling and just having a shootout. No,
yeah.
I'm gonna come pull you out of your bunker and get you. Maybe shoot you a little bit, but that whole aspect of like the World Eater's game plan, play style, aesthetic, and eventually even the lore just lined all of that together for me. I ended up loving all of it.
hmm
Um,
So it's kind of like
yeah,
the perfect, like, amalgamation of different things that you like about the hobby all coming together in one
yep.
faction, which kind of pulled it. Yeah.
And like the thing that like I love the tragedy of the World Eaters too. I really do feel like out of all the legions, they're the most tragic. Their
I think a
fall,
lot of
right?
people like it's an interesting one. A lot of people say that like, oh, Angron's not a tragic character and the world leaders aren't tragic. I'm not really sure how I feel about Angron personally, but I definitely think the Legion itself is quite tragic. It's like they
They
really
just
tried. Like
they
they
wanted
really
to make
tried.
their dad happy, and
Yeah.
it because it stated a few times that like all of the Primarchs inherit a trait from the Emperor, and Angron's original inherited trait was supposed to be empathy.
Hmm.
He was supposed to empower those around him and basically just be a conduit of leadership, which he's the opposite of at this point.
Which
And
is really cool as like
like
a,
when he was
a
in
whole
the
thing.
yeah, when he was in the rings fighting, that's what he was doing. He was keeping his brothers and his fellow slaves, like he was like, "Hey, don't give up. We're gonna
Yeah.
get out of this,"
He like
keeping them
took
calm.
their pain, right, in the Slave
Yep,
to Nasseria book. Yeah, that was like
yep.
I remember reading that being like, hang on a minute. What's
Yeah,
going on here?
and
Is this
then yeah,
magic?
and then imagine where I'm at, where it's
Yeah.
I'm at ninth edition World Leaders lore, and I'm reading, and then I'm going back in time to reading Old Angron, and I'm like, well, who is this man? What
Yeah.
happened? What? I'm missing a chunk here. What is it?
It's okay, you're almost at the end of Betrayer. That will
Yep.
answer a lot of questions.
But I really do think he's the most tragic Primarch, and his Legion is too. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm just Unga Bunga Legion. Like there's a bit of a story to this too.
Yeah. Have you read any of the Siege books? The Siege of
Uh,
Terra?
Siege of Terra, no, I have not. It's on the to-do list,
Yeah.
but I can
There's
only.
some really emotional world leader scenes in some of those books where it really drives home that kind of tragic stuff. I'm sure you'll love it when you get to it. It's very good, but very powerful reading as well. I think.
And with how Angron's book ended with oh, what's the name of the planet?
Ooh, it's not
With the
Scalatrax.
Gellens,
Oh yeah, Genna. Genna
Genna,
is the
Genna,
yeah the Genna massacre is the
when
that
the world
volume.
leaders massacred themselves in a
Yeah.
coup, that was pretty rough.
That was rough. Yep. And then the Space Wolves drop down, right? And they're just like, "Hey, what's going on here?"
You guys good?
Yeah. Is everything okay? Yeah, I love that. Awesome. So kind of hooked you in, and then you're here, which is this is a really interesting point, right? Where we've gotten to know you through the Discord and stuff and all that, and obviously you've become quite this large force in the community in the last like I feel like couple of months. Is when you really kind of like burst out on the scene, especially with the WCW's stuff. But I think we'll dive into that in part two. So what we might do now is cut to our little transition in the middle and come back for part two, where we talk a little bit more about the competitive, because I think that's what a lot of people want to hear from you. So we'll be right back in just a moment, folks. Welcome back to All Around the World Leaders, folks. This is part two of the episode with Brian, and I'm your host, Dara. We talked a lot in the first part about what got you into the hobby, what kept you in the hobby, and then why you love the World Leaders. But Brian, I gotta ask you, speaking of eaters, what is your favorite food in the whole world?
Favorite food in the whole world.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
It's probably my own food. I'm actually a decent cook.
Really?
I make a mean rack of ribs. I can make a really good rack of ribs. Uh,
Talk me through the process. I need to know about this rack of ribs.
oh, it's a family recipe. But I basically oven bake my ribs. The secret is I actually put them in frozen. Um,
What? Forbidden.
I know, I know. The secret is I cook them. I freeze them, and then when I bring them out, I do something different to them, but I will not give away.
Of course,
And
yeah.
then I put them in the oven frozen, and what it'll do is it will actually trap all the moisture in them, so they'll cook but stay juicy and fall off the bone.
I see it. I see it. That's a
I have my special
strong
rub
call.
that I put on them. It's and when
All
they
right,
come out,
listen. I'll be at a GW Open at some point next year. I'm expecting you to rock up with a whole rack of ribs for me. Okay, it's that
okay,
simple.
I'll bring some ribs.
Bring a smoker. Bring the oven. Bring whatever you need. It'll be fine. They'll
Uh,
accommodate it.
Chicago Open, Red Path. We'll be
Easy,
there, maybe,
easy, easy.
maybe.
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, it's a while away yet, but we can plan for it. Um, but I suppose yeah, on the tournament front, right? Evidently, over the last year of you getting into the hobby, at some point you kind of dived into competitive play as well. Have you always like been a competitive player, or was that something that kind of came with the introduction to the hobby? I know you mentioned Magic. Did you play Magic competitively as well, or kind of how did that come about?
I actually, as far as Magic goes, I actually was a pretty competitive player, but Magic is definitely, it sounds weird saying this, way more luck based than 40K is. Um, I don't know how much exposure you have to that game, but
Almost none.
almost none. Uh, top decks are usually like you need that one card in your deck, and there's a 1 in 50 chance it shows up, and multiply that 10 times in a row, right? You have your
Okay.
most ideal card that you draw, and it's like, oh, do you get it, or do you get close to it, or not? Versus 40K, which is controlled luck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel
Like
like
the amount of variance can affect a game of 40k, but the amount of
mhm,
variance that does affect the game is kind of in your own control. I always
you're
feel.
right. You can put yourself in you put yourself in a position where luck even mattered to
Hmm.
begin with, right? That which is I don't like the argument that like, oh, it's a dice game, that means it's all chance. It's like, no, positioning, like there are tools within 40K that give you opportunities. And if you fail to even have that opportunity, then you never even had a chance. Luck didn't even matter, right? There wasn't,
What about going second in the Night Spinner game?
oh God. Um, I don't want to play. I don't know. I've signed up for two RTTs now,
Okay.
in a row, on the 8th and 17th. And I think if there's a triple night spinner there, I might start crying. But there is one right now that I can see in their list published.
Wonderful.
But 40K for me was just a lot more player expression. There's a lot more tactics to it. Um, and it's a lot more controlled variance, like you said. I mean, I'm going to roll 1,000 dice over the course of this game.
Mm.
It's going to end up 50-50,
Yeah,
right?
you're going
Or
to get that
whatever
normal
that was.
distribution over the game.
And sure, that one 4-up may have won or lost you the game, but like if you're relying on one 4-up, maybe
If
there
it's
were some
that
other steps you could have
close,
improved. You
yeah,
could have improved somewhere else, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
comes down to just usually more than just that 4-up.
Completely
Um,
agree.
and I like board games. I played Axis and Allies a lot as a kid.
Oh, sick. Yeah, I
I
remember that.
love that game.
Yeah, it's solid.
And there's pretty much no way to play that game casually. It's
No.
just cutthroat. You got to go for the win.
It's
Um,
intense.
and when I play 40K too, like I like to say that I have an off switch, on switch, off switch. When I physically play my games, but I do enjoy playing it for its full aspect as a game, trying to like stretch its boundaries, really express myself as a player,
Hmm.
and be the best I can be. Um,
Awesome.
so it
Sick.
is definitely an aspect that I really liked and it attracted me to the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, given that it kind of hooked you in that sense, and you saw this opportunity for skill expression, which I totally agree. Everything you said there, I'm like right on that same page with you. But over a very short amount of time, you've become a very, very good player at the game. I don't think there's any sort of ifs or buts about that. You went to WCW, came away with Best World Leaders, defeated some of the best players in the game right now. In a very short space of time, you've gotten to this level. How? How did you do it?
I'm I'm a very analytical person. I'm an engineer for a living. So it's kind of it's my in my job to solve problems, right? I've been
Right.
basically trained as a kid, as a baby, really. I was gonna planning on being an engineer my whole life to solve problems. And while I think that guided me, like mentally prepared me for something like that, that's definitely not the reason why. Um, it's just I enjoy looking at and solving puzzles. When I look at a board and say, hey, here's what I need to do to get this many points. Here's the secondaries that I drew. How do I do this perfectly? And running that through my head and really solving those problems in front of me. Actually, I enjoy that. I really do enjoy trying to be a problem solver in the moment. And leading up to like my competitive career, it was like list building. What makes sense? What doesn't? What is the job of every unit? Like when I'm putting a unit in my army, what do I envision this unit doing? What problem is it solving? And if it's redundant or if it's kind of just got a confused role, maybe it's a little too cute, it's a pet, usually in and out. And I had to learn over the like months what worked and what didn't work and what felt right and what was really like my how I could express like my problem solving the best with. And I ended up at a point where I am now, where I'm very satisfied with my list. I actually played it like today with the modifications I talked about from
Yeah,
WCW
nice. Yeah, yeah.
and ended up tying, but it felt really good. And I was really happy with where it was. And it had a lot of movement options, a lot of moving parts, and it really felt the most like I really do feel like my list currently is where I want it to be. But um, kind of just looking at slowing down is like the best advice I could give anybody when they're playing a game. It's like slow down. What do you need to do on your turn? And what's the best way to do it with the best tools you have?
And would you
And
say
if
like on that like the I love the slowing down thing. I think it's really correct, but um I always say to people in the list building as well, like slow down with your list building because the thing that I used to do, and I know a lot of people do, and I don't know how you feel about this, but like after maybe you play a practice game and you take an L, and people really jump the gun in terms of like I need to make X many changes and like really rewrite their whole list, but they might have only practiced that list once, right? And how do you kind of feel about that? Like when you are practicing a list and some there's a failure state, how how aggressively do you go about changing your list? Is it dramatic, or do you think you kind of like just try and make small tweaks until it works?
I think my list from the start of 10th looks very similar to what it is now. Um, or at least you can see the natural progression in my list. I only maybe exchanged 1 to 2 units per iteration. Um, Usually it takes a few games for me to really be like, yeah, this isn't working. Matchups can change everything, right? You can have like I think in the previous video I talked about the Gene Stealer cult matchup. I was using Exalted 8-bound as screens. Who the hell does that,
Yes,
right?
that was
That's not
cursed.
that's cursed. And like
Yeah,
you could see your Exalted 8-bound get picked up by a Gene Stealer cult player, and you could be like, these are garbage. I'd never want to play them. But no,
yeah.
they're one of the best units in our codex. Um,
But that kind of
and
relates back to what you were saying, right, about the problem solving. That was a very unique problem state on the board that you had to solve, right?
correct. And the 8-bound had to fulfill. They were the only thing that could fulfill that role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I like to always explain to my friends too, when we play games that like there's value in things dying and doing nothing. Like there's value in doing nothing, right?
Okay,
Um,
I'm listening. That
and
sounds cool.
it's account for the fact that like for you to finish the game perfectly tabled, your opponent is going to kill 20% of your army every turn. Just accept the fact that models are going to die and it's probably out of your control. You can mitigate that a little bit, but your opponent is going to try to kill your models. If you have a squad of 6 8-bound that do nothing but get shot at for a turn and a half, they did pretty good.
Yep.
They didn't kill anything, but they kept pressure off of it's distraction Carnifex. It's that thought process just like expanded. Like there's value in stuff dying, and even though like you put those exalted 8-bound to crack tanks and they didn't touch a tank once the whole game, that doesn't mean they're failures. Like what did they accomplish other than killing things or not killing
It
things?
doesn't
Like
have
they're
to be a straight trade, right? There's lots of
no.
other like they can be accumulating points or distracting. Like there's so many roles that I feel like people don't necessarily equate because I guess they're not as tangible, right? It's a lot harder to say like, oh well, they made their points back because they scored me this many victory points and took away this much firepower, as opposed to saying like they made their points back because they killed a unit that was like also 300 points, right?
Right, and it's like I find Angron in most of my games too very rarely kills 415 points worth of things.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, like he charged a brick of 20 Crusaders and Grimaldus today and killed like 10. What is that for them? Like 80 points.
Yeah.
And then he did it again the next turn, and that's all he did the whole game. But he ate 4 Gladiator Lancer shots, rounds of shooting. That 20-man brick was stuck there, and it took Helbrecht and 10 boys to bring him down, right? It took the dude's whole army for a turn and a half to kill my 415 point Primarch, and they're like, people can say, "Oh, Angron rarely gets his points back and he just dies." Well, it's like that's good. That's
Yeah.
okay. Like
Absolutely.
that's you want sometimes there's value in doing nothing.
Mm. I think
Um,
that's a really great piece of advice and a fantastic insight as well into the difference between someone who's good at the game and someone who's great at the game. But as you were developing over the last year and kind of getting better, was there anything that you found yourself really struggling with? And is there any aspect of your game that you think is like weaker than maybe your problem solving ability, which seems to be really strong? Like, is there anything that kind of you feel is holding you back at the minute?
I'll say my biggest issue is with deployment. And I think that's most people will probably fall in that same category of just you just
For
want to throw
sure.
stuff on the board and get that game started. Once it's started and the pace is slowed down a little bit because deployment's very fast. Like, and that's also like one of the more high pressure, like go, 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 my drop, your drop, my drop, your drop. and trying to envision your whole game plan all at once. Like you have to pretty much plan the first three turns of your game with your deployment and trying to avoid the consequences of a bad deployment. All of that's pretty high pressure. And I find myself, if I'm losing a game, usually it's in deployment
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
putting Invocatus out of position. So, wait, now I need the Jackals way over here that he was planning on scouting. So now he's only scouting one thing, and there's a bunch of value lost there. Um, that can be difficult.
I
And
guess
I
there's a
feel
lot
like
of factors to consider, though, right? Because you're trying to gauge your opponent. You don't have the full picture of where they're putting their stuff down.
correct.
You're trying to react to that. You're trying to plan out your game plan. There's
And you're
just so
trying to,
much going on.
yeah, and you're trying to keep certain things that need to be next to each other intact and figuring like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to put this rhino here so it can drive way out over there, but oh no, you put it too far up in your deployment line. Now you can't put your 8 bound in front of it. And if you put your 8 bound in front of it, now you're 2 inches back and you just screwed yourself on a potential charge.
Yeah.
And that can be pretty overwhelming.
Yeah. And the whole kind of
Um,
thing as well of like, I don't want to deploy this unit just yet because it'll telegraph too hard to my opponent where they need to put their thing. And oh man, it's like I think it's probably something we all universally struggle with is the deployment phase. And
I'd say
a
it's
lot
the
of
hardest aspect of the game.
yeah, I
Proper
think so.
deployment. I think
Think
it's the
so.
hardest part of the game.
Yeah.
You can lose in deployment, and your opponent you can win in deployment too. We're playing world leaders.
Hmm.
They put something on the line in front of Angron, and you're like, tasty Baneblade mine. I've
Yep.
done that a few times.
Yeah. I've seen people lose to world leaders in the deployment phase more times than anything else. I think it's just like as soon as someone does not respect the threat range, it is literally GG.
Mhm.
For sure. So, um, there's probably a lot of people listening who want to up their game, right? Who want to get better at the game competitively, and if you were to kind of like talk to those people, this is your podium moment, right, where you can look out on the masses and say, what would you say to them? Like, what is the one thing that you see people get wrong over and over again, or people are not, maybe respecting enough? Like, what is that one thing that you would kind of tell everyone, like, this is how you need to get better at the game. This is what you're doing wrong.
I think a lot of it comes down to people see stuff on the internet and they think that's correct. They think that this is the way to play. This is the only way to play. What may work at WCW may fail miserably in your local RTTs, right? And that can really be a um, damper on your personal like mindset. Like in my local meta, everybody plays bricks. Like it's 20 boys plus Grimaldus, 10 boys plus Helbricht. That's the same thing. Back when Custodians were a thing, it was 10, 10, 10, and that's all I ever saw. Same thing, 10 Terminator bricks, Chaos Space Marines. That's all that's in my local meta.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a very MSU list right now. MSU struggle into bricks pretty hard, but into like Eldar and MSU CSM, now we got a game. So just because you see something on the internet and you're like, this is the way to play this list, is it really? Like, really look at what's around you. And also like trying to cookie cutter that too. Like now where world leaders are at and world leaders specifically, like I have a 10-man Berserker squad, a 5-man Berserker squad, another 5-man Berserker squad, Invocatus, Lord on Juggernaut. They can Mo and Khorne can literally attach to any of those squads, and I've actually attached them to pretty much any and all of those squads in those combinations, other than maybe a 10-man with like one of the Juggerlords. Um, Seeing it done on camera once doesn't mean it's always the correct way. Trying to adapt it, trying to change on the fly. Hey, I need to put this guy in reserves. He's not normally supposed to be in reserves, but in this game he has to be in reserves against Eldar. Juggernaut Lord, for me, always goes in reserves. Or Khorne, does he go with the 5 or the 10? Just because you see one guy on stream do it with the Mo with 10 every single game doesn't mean that is the way to play Mo, as a way to play Mo. But just trying to keep your mind open to trying things out, and just because you see it work for one person, it may not work for you, and that doesn't mean it's bad or it's good. You kind of just got to do that problem solving thing. Like, look at what your opponent has in front of you. What do I need to do to beat this, and what's the best tools,
Yeah.
best combos of those tools? And even in your list building, be like, what does my local meta look like? What are the tools I need? Does the Mauler Fiend are the Mauler Fiends cute, or are they?
They're cute, Brian.
They're I
They ain't
love them.
coming off the shelf for a while.
I am the king of the Mauler Fiends. I will steal that title. I will play them the
You
day
don't need to
I
steal
think
that
they're
title.
great.
No one else is claiming it.
Yeah, it's I picked it up off the ground. It's mine. My
hmm
trash. Um, but
Do you
and
really want the Mauler Fiends to be good? Like, are they that near and dear to your heart?
I think hot take, they're like 20 points from being like go-tos. I
Oh
really
yeah,
do.
yeah.
I even now, like people are like, oh, you have to like pay one CP to do six mortals, and I was like, I'll pay a CP
I
to
am
do
those
six
people.
mortals.
I am those people. I hate that argument so
I know
much.
you hate it, but
I'm
in
like,
my
where are you finding
Michigan,
the CP, Brian? Where are you
like,
finding it? You need it
why
for other things.
why would you roll dice? And I was in the Michigan GT and I killed an Incarn purely with mortals in one turn. He was like bragging about how like Angron doesn't kill the Incarn on average. And I was like, who said Angron? Mauler Fiend beep beep six mortals. Juggernaut Lord did four mortals and I grenades. And I was like, whatever, loser. Like only the Mauler Fiend can do that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. But again, going off topic, yeah, you could justify a Mauler Fiend in a list depending on what people are playing around you.
hmm
And just trying to stay cookie cutter to what you see on the internet may not always be the best. And people on the internet can be wrong.
Yeah.
Or like
Absolutely.
people can just be really good players not playing the best lists.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of that's reps, right? Like to get to that level where you can look at the game state in the way that you're looking at it, and to have the intuition to see the game state for what it is, to see the opponent for what it is, and recognize what you need to do in all those examples. You got to put some serious reps in to get that kind of. I guess it's like muscle memory, right?
Yeah, and it is, but there's a wealth of knowledge on the internet. Like I watched tons of gameplay just for fun when I'm working from home or just on the weekends and I'm eating breakfast. I'll watch battle reports. Like you can get that insight from people just by watching and kind of catch up, which is kind of what I did. I mean, I was watching the Red Path getting into 40K and I was like, it skyrocketed me pretty much straight to like some pretty basic decisions that I would have missed for my first 50 games. I was
And
doing game
beyond
one.
beyond the basic decisions, we have got nothing. you,
No,
you are
no, that's not
fucked.
what I was saying. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like,
Oh, okay. Then yeah. Those three drills were in my cart ready to buy.
oh, don't even listen. They're brilliant paperweights, and there they shall remain.
I was so hyped for Blood Slaughterers too. I was like, I don't know why they didn't just put those into plastic for us. I was like, that's such an easy demon engine.
I run my blood slaughters as Mauler fiends now because it's like they kind of have the pseudo harpoon ability now where it's like
Yeah, like the plus
yeah
two.
it's so fake but it's just like yeah cool I guess I'm dealing with it but yeah it was such
I
an easy
just
port.
it was just they just needed a plastic release and done. Don't even need to waste design space.
Same with the
Done.
scorpion. Just give us that in plastic. Can you imagine the scorpion in plastic? That would be a dream.
That would be so, I will say that model seems I'm kind of okay with it going away just because it was super hear me out.
Well,
It
man.
was super intimidating, definitely super intimidating model to build and paint and
Oh yeah.
I feel like just with how complicated it is, it would have been a gateway or gatekeeper model. Definitely like if it was good
But they
and
could
people
make
needed
it
to
easier to build and paint, right? For sure.
sure, I guess my reason's pretty bad, but
I don't think it's like that bad of a reason. Like they want to make things accessible as well. Like
it was just very complicated. And I think I heard that the mold got broken for
it
that.
did. Yep.
So, I mean,
Yeah, mine was on order when it got broken. So I had to wait a really long time. Long enough that I never got to play it. Because, much like you, I find it very difficult to build. So my guy is in like, I think probably about 12 different pieces right now.
it is probably one of the hardest models I've ever seen constructed.
Yeah, now that you say it, I don't know if I've actually built a model that's like more complicated than the Brass Scorpion. It's very hard to pose, because he's
Yeah,
got all
you
those
got to
leg
get all
joints.
eight
Yeah.
legs on the ground and
Even harder to
oh,
pose if you're trying
you
to
can
pull
get
something off
lost in
where
the trim and then you just turn it upside down and there's like so
there's
much
so
detail.
much, yeah. But you
The
know
little
the thing I
bodies
love?
hanging out of it and
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I love the bodies. Like they you just don't get that from the Mauler Fiend, right? The like
right.
interwoven dudes and people like that have been sacrificed and stuff. I don't know. That's like my jam. I'm like, that's really cool.
And it's a dope model and it's great for hobbies to get lost in the sauce on, but I mean that it's a hell of an intimidating model
Yeah,
to definitely build. I mean, I'm
absolutely.
working on the Lord of Skulls right now and I'm sub-assembling it and it's
Yeah.
gonna probably take me a month to really get it done.
That thing is less complicated though. That's like Minecraft, right? It's just like giant
Yeah.
brick and then smaller cube on the top, and then that's
Yeah,
kind of it.
for me, it's the blood tanks on the back that are like, I can't get my brush in there, right? So I have
Yeah,
to
that's annoying.
paint them and then glue them.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No, for sure.
that one is definitely way easier,
Hmm. Yeah.
especially working with resin too. Oh,
I mean, and the it's just the weight of the scorpion as well. Like when you're painting it, it's like a workout. It's like, man, this thing is heavy.
oh yeah, it's like a small baby, and then
Yeah.
it's fragile as hell too. Like
Hmm.
one wrong movement and nope, leg popped off,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Pretty much. Yep. It's
So, and visually, I feel like it doesn't really fit our vibe.
okay. Careful now.
Yeah,
This is
I'm
like
sorry.
visually, it's so up my street. It's like what I
It
want Demon Engines to
it's
be.
dope as hell. Don't get me wrong, but with the direction I feel like they're taking us, because World Eaters seem more like with their current design, like our armor's falling off because our biceps are too big.
Hmm.
Like that's the vibe we're going. Like armor's for weaklings,
Yeah.
right?
It definitely
We look
doesn't work against the new. Like
we're
you put eight
almost
bound next to this, it's like no.
yeah, no. And it's like we're almost like not quite Mad Max, but like we're not far from it. Give us another 10,000 years
Yeah.
and we're gonna look Mad Max, right?
Yeah. It's definitely it's walking that tightrope right now. How do
The
you feel
Jackal
about it actually? Like, because obviously when you started, we didn't have all the new stuff. Like, is the new aesthetic direction what you want for the world leaders, or is it like, where does it fall for you?
sue me, I was actually really butthurt when I saw what the 8 pound looked like. I didn't vibe with them initially. I was like, these don't look good. Like, you're telling me possessed look dope,
Hmm.
and we have 8 demons in one dude, and he somehow looks less possessed than a possessed. Like, what's going on here? Like, where's the big, cool, fancy helmets, which I ended up finding some good 3D,
Yeah, there's some
like,
sick 3D prints for those. Yeah.
and I ended up finding good 3D prints for those, and I was like, yeah, I feel like 8 bound are begging to be kit bashed to look better, like just as a model. I know you just released a kit
I
bash
was gonna say,
video, and I
check
was
out the
like,
red path for
yeah,
how
and
you can do it.
it just feels like the model's incomplete to me.
I
Um,
totally agree. Yeah.
and that was a little disappointing. I thought World Leaders on Release would have been a great entry point for Beastmen. I thought I was part of that tinfoil hat. I was like, our cultist unit is going to be Beastmen. I
Yep.
was like,
Yep.
and I thought we were going to get like goat people for cultists, and I was like, that would have been cool as hell. Great way to introduce them to the game.
That said, that said, I love the jackals. They're like my favorite of the new range.
I
They're so good.
When I saw them, I was like, this is good.
Yep.
This is a good substitute. I didn't realize how big they were until I saw them next to a guardsman. They're like a
They're big
full
boys.
head
Yeah.
and they're ripped, and I was like, okay, how are flagellants 2 wounds and like scrawnier than my like biceped out, like cracked out,
Yeah.
literally drinking Angron juice in a backpack. Um,
Yeah. They're so
but
good though. I love those guys.
I do like the aesthetic. It's changing, but that's like
Yeah.
part of the World Eater story is like we don't build things, right?
Yeah.
We take things
And we keep getting bigger.
and bigger muscles,
Yeah.
right? So eventually we eventually like in 10,000 years, yeah, land raiders probably won't exist in the World Eater Legion. They'll
Yeah.
just be gone.
It's sad, but it's true.
That's why we got
Awesome.
demon engines. That's
Yeah.
what Purdy is for. Keep selling us demon engines.
And we keep buying it. And who knows where we're getting the money, but we've got it somewhere. Awesome. So I suppose to close this one out, one final question for you, Brian. Like, what's next? You've achieved so much in less than a year. Like, you've achieved more in this year than people will in their entire competitive careers of 40K. Where are you planning on going from here?
Um, Currently, I'm just trying to enjoy the hobby for what it is. I feel like I've gotten to the point of like I am happy with where I'm at in 40K, and I'm going like when we no when the Red Butchers come out in their 10th edition release, like they are coming.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Go party.
I am. I actually was at one of the Warhammer releases or previews at Adepticon last year, and I got a hold of the mic, and I was like, "Red Butchers win," and I basically got told to sit down by by the announcer. He was just like, "You'll get it when you get it," and I was like, "Okay."
All right, then I guess.
But
Sure.
I'm buying 30 when they come out. I'm buying whatever the max squad of Berserker Jug. I love World Eaters. I'm gonna play them for their new style. I'm excited for that. I am being patient, being realistic. I'm not gonna genuinely Red Butchers may not happen. I'd say it's a 50-50.
I think,
Um,
yeah, like
I'm
I,
preparing for it not happening.
I
I,
just really don't know if Terminators are like
we have our 8-bound are our Terminators, and I think
kind of,
somebody in the
yeah.
Discord was mentioning it is like none of the other mono gods have possessed. We have basically our own unique possess, which I feel like are our Terminators. Like oh, Death Guard has two different types of Terminators. Well, we have two different types of possessed.
Does our
How does
book really need another like elite strong infantry dude who is good at killing elite strong infantry dudes?
But headcanon kill main burn, I feel like our Red Butchers would be like flamer heavy, like really, really flamer heavy, like
Oh,
flamer
okay,
gauntlets. That could
cool.
be cool. Like give us
That
some
could
shoot,
be
like
cool. Yeah.
make us shooty without shooting, right? That
Mm-hmm.
that is an aspect, design aspect they could expand on. But I'm open to their next wave. Whatever it is, I will love it. They're doing a great job with their design. I'm getting into AOS. Like I said, I'm getting into the Soulblight Grave Lords, my friends. And then competitively going forward, like I have two RTTs scheduled. I'm still testing my list. It still may not be perfect. I like where it's at though. Um,
And is the new season going to be big? Like, do you think we'll say the ITC 2024 season, is that going to be big for you? Are you going to go hard into the tournaments or kind of keep it to about the same pace as this year?
and it's important for me to say like this is a hobby for me. It's not a career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no Art of War, no Glass Hammer. I'm not gonna be traveling the world for games. Um,
We'll get you to the LGT. We'll get
I
you over
there's
it.
actually a solid chance that could happen. I, I,
Yeah,
I if it's a vacation, I'll do it. I could make a
100%.
vacation out of it,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely not gonna tournament hunt and grind. Um, I'm thankfully in a very good part of the United States for access to gaming. I mean, Toronto is 2.5 hour drive from me. Chicago is also right there. This is the Columbus GT. Michigan has two GTs. I think I will probably be in about five, six, seven GTs, just within my region, my local region.
I mean,
And then,
that's unreal. Like, very few people have that much access to GTs over the course of a year in their
and
local, you know.
it's nice just because I'm pretty centrally located, all these big cities, without having to make a vacation out of it, right? Like
Yeah.
Chicago's a
Yeah.
3 hour drive. Um, I can go find an Airbnb for $50 and have a great time and drag Jamie and you along there to the Chicago Open.
Okay, let's calm
Um,
down now. That's quite a traveling distance for me. But Jamie, yeah, sure. No, I
uh,
do really want to hit a GW Open next year. If things go well, you know, there's a whole host of variables on my end for that.
for sure. And like I will be at local events and if I get a golden ticket again, you'll see me at WCW again. I think
Yeah.
they mentioned it'll be in the Atlanta area again. I'm not
Oof.
I'm not super excited for that. I
Yeah.
have some experiences from that trip just from the city that
Ain't
I
it?
don't know. I'll keep them to myself. Atlanta's a city.
Mm.
Um, but uh, I will if a golden ticket falls in my lap again, which is a huge if. I mean, a lot of very strong players in my area. I mean, Manny was at Adepticon last year. I'm sure he'll be there this year. Um, if not, I mean, I still love this hobby with as much with a ticket without. I consider myself a successful player just playing in my club every Thursday.
Yeah, 100%. And keeping it as a hobby as well, like very important for making sure that it remains being fun, you know, at all times.
Right.
Awesome. I think that about wraps it up. Anyway, this is we've been going for around and about an hour, which is about the usual length for the episode. Brian, is there anyone you want to like thank or shout out, or anywhere that you know you want to direct people if they want to find out more from you? Before we close this one out.
Yeah, like I said, it was my best friend that got me into this game. And honestly, I've pretty far outpaced him in terms of like game knowledge. And like I'm pretty competitive and he's pretty casual. And it's kind of shocked him how far I've come. But Mitchell Keelan, my friend down in uh Plano, Texas, I mean, he's a fantastic artist. You can look up his Instagram. I've yet I I've been pushing him. He has several models that could be Golden Demon winners, in my
Wow.
opinion.
Okay.
Like my Brass
Sick.
Scorpion came from him. Maybe I can steal some of his stuff to like show you.
Yeah, 100%.
My
Definitely. Yeah.
Bellacorn and Abacorn came from him. He's a fantastic painter, fantastic friend. He got me into this hobby. I honestly love him. He's gonna be my best man.
Nice.
So That's I'd like to give a shout out to him, also to the Red Path for helping keep me on the World Leaders team.
Haha, peace.
And that is those are my two favorite shout outs probably right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to shout out the Red Path on a channel where there's already people, but hey,
Hey,
we'll take what we can get.
I- I'll give you credit where credit's due. Ninth
We were the
edition
first
Codex.
step, and then the remaining 99 steps you achieve by yourself. So we'll,
Oh, I'm a member of Red Path now. I'm dragging you
that's
guys
true.
up those steps with me.
That's true. Yeah. Bring us right to the top. It's been a pleasure, Brian. It's been really really nice to talk to you again. And yeah, I don't know. I just love hearing your thoughts. Because I agree with so many of them, except for the Mahler Fiend one. But we'll get
That's
past that.
okay. I'll forgive you for that one.
Yeah, we'll get around it together. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, folks, and thank you, Brian, for joining us. It's been another great episode of All Around the World Leaders. We will be back at the same time next week, as you all know. Until then, though, folks, I've been Dara. It's been the Red Path. It's been All Around the World Leaders. Stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.